Is there anything you guys want to talk about before we go home? Sure.
So, in your lecture on the birth of modernity, you bring up the fact that, how it used to work in the Western world is, religion would have answers for you that would keep you from asking, like, existential questions about your place in the world, to, like, simplify your life and keep you on course as a productive member of society. Like, so in our modern world, do you think that, like, we should live in a post-religious society, or do you think that religion is still a very important, valuable force to, like, help foster communal bonds, like, within, like, the modern world? Or, like, what place do you think religion has in our modern scientific world?
If you were to look at religion and religious ideas the way you look at money, okay? It's good to move out of your parents' house, hello, if you have money, if you can pay rent, if you can pay for your car, food, all that stuff. The idea of moving out when you have zero cash and you don't have enough to pay rent or food or gas or electricity, the rest of it, it's just foolish. You don't need religion if your life works for you. If you're not depressed, if you're not lonely, if you only have existential angst or questions, deep questions once in a blue moon, if your life is nourishing you, you're fine. If on the other hand, like money, you don't have any, you're just walking around aimlessly, and you have to ask people if what you're doing is right or wrong, or what is right or wrong, what is meaningful and meaningless, then you're in trouble. When you look at today's culture, the sort of people that it creates, well, there's a good amount of bankruptcy that's out there. From works of art to education to relationships, it matters very little. Most of the things that used to ground us no longer does. I'm not saying they ground us for the good, and let me also add that the way that you and I look at religion is not the way perhaps that our grandparents looked at religion. The way that we view religion as a way of nourishment is very different than the way our grandparents did. So as long as you know your time in history, as long as you know what benefits you, what harms you, I think you'll be fine. I think when you listen to the audio, The Birth of Modernity, within the context of 2024 human beings, consider the following way. You're a 2-year-old, and what any 2-year-old demands is, without really being vocal about it, is, I want safety and security. When I cry, I want my mom to run to me. Or when I poop in my diaper, before getting a rash, I want someone to change my diaper. I want some forms of entertainment. I want to be fed. Okay? You don't have any of that. So this formative years, where the concrete is supposed to kind of harden, it's not there, so it's cracked all over the place. And you lose your ability to trust, to have faith, to love, And so when you look at the past 700 years and how it has demolished the psyches of the Western world, well, there is nothing left. Now, it's not true for everyone. Some people can just be okay with having nothing, that's fine. Some people go a little mad. So it depends which category you fall into. Let me also give you a different way of looking at religion. And some of you in this class who've taken my other classes know this analogy really well. It's the life of a salmon fish. salmon fish is kind of like us in the sense that it starts at top of this pond somewhere underneath some rocks. It's nothing but an egg. The force of the water pushes the egg downward. By the time it reaches the pond, it's a fully quacking fish. Swims around, has a great time. Makes friends, I suppose gets married, goes to Costco, has a very, very meaningful life. Hello, Terry. At a certain point, something really devastating happens to the salmon fish. Thank you. The salmon fish doesn't feel at home anymore. Consider that you've been in a relationship for about 10, 15, 20 years. Some of us in this class have experienced that. You got married because of love. You found a good amount of commonality between yourself and your companion. Years go by, you create stories, psychological stories, emotional stories that bond the two of you together. And it's a gradual process in the sense that once in a while you have these whispers that happen to you late at night. That, why are you here? You're not really passionate. You don't really like her as much, or him. Now, you may assume that these whispers mean nothing, but they have a snowball effect. As time goes on, and as the questions become more frequent, and the more frequency that they have, the more intense they become. To the point that one morning you wake up and you say, I'm just going to pack and leave. Okay? Now, it's a very intuitive, instinctual way of being. It has zero politics involved. It has zero fear involved. All you know is that it's a relationship that you feel you're caged. You're suffocating. Of course, the other person will come to you, will demand A, B, C, D. They'll make you feel guilty and embarrassed and ashamed. They'll call your mom, your dad. And then you'll Godfather Part 3. Every time you try to get out, they drag you or pull you back in. Okay? And the salmon fish, after many years of being down in the ocean, in the river, whatever, all of a sudden has this feeling that this is not my home. I have parents, but they don't really feel like parents. I have friends that don't really feel like friends. I've built a house, but it's not really a home. I have a job, but it's not really an extension of my soul or creativity. I want out. The problem with going out is that you're going into the unknown. You have no idea what the future holds for you. Imagine that I'm your father, and you're my 18-year-old punk son. Okay? Now, let's also say that I'm from Iran, I'm an immigrant, but you were born here. So about 80, 90% of you are just American. You have 10% Persian, and that 10% is your taste buds, you like qurma sabzi, cholo kebab, so on and so forth, okay? And you come to me and you say, Dad, I want to drop out of school. For what? I want to go out there and explore the world. I've been to many countries. There is nothing to explore. Sit your ass down, stay in school, get your degrees, and then if you want to leave, leave. I've been into the unknown. I know how difficult and confusing it can be. It's frightening, especially when you end up near the end of the month with zero cash in your pocket and you have to pay rent. I know your future. You just don't know where I've been. You think life is funny. Okay? Now that's the problem with salmon fish. You're going to go out there and explore, but explore after what? Okay. So the salmon fish has to leave everything behind. And you could say that in the river, salmon fish was a Catholic, was a Jew, was a Muslim, was a Buddhist, was a Hindu. Everything about the salmon fish life was profoundly meaningful. The assumption was, I'm going somewhere. I'm believing in something. This is right, that's wrong. There comes a point where religion has no value. Friendship has no value. Philosophies of life have no value. The salmon fish swims into the darkness. She has no idea where she's going. And something really interesting happens with the salmon fish is that he or she becomes profoundly intuitive, instinctual, in the sense that they begin to be guided by something they've never seen, experienced before. They just, kind of like if you've seen the first or the second Star Wars movie, where, what's that guy's name? His teacher.
Yoda?
Not the Yoda, but the other guy. Obi-Wan. He's on this hovercraft. He's about to kind of demolish Darth Vader, but Obi-Wan Kenobi tells him, use the Force, Luke. And that's what happens to salmon fish. She begins to use the Force that lives inside her. And she says, you know what, I'm just going to swim where my fins take me. And what will happen is she begins to swim at the worst time of the year. The bears are no longer asleep. They've been asleep for about 6 months. They're really, really hungry, you know. And the fish begin to do things that the salmon fish, that fish don't usually do, which is they begin to fly. They actually go against the current of the river. And that's what we call by creativity, autonomy, individuality. You go against the waves of society. Snoop Dogg is no longer any good. Neither is Taylor Swift. School is no longer any good. Your marriage is no longer any good. But you have to have a just cause. And for that to happen, you have to be profoundly intuitive. And that takes a long, long, long time. And by intuitive, I mean there must come a point in your life where all the things that of your parents that live inside you, all the things of your own life has injected inside you, all the books you have read, all the classes you have taken, all the sense of pride and egoism you may have inside you need to be demolished, very much like a salmon fish. Now you go against life. And there's a reason why we don't like people like Malcolm X, Jesus Christ, Socrates. They don't tell us anything that's good about life, at least initially. You have to go against it. And that is what the salmon fish does. And many of them get devoured, eaten up by the bears. A few survive. And the few that survive, they lay some eggs and they die. It's finished. So I suppose you could say that your parents, from the time you're born, they take you to the church, you're baptized there, you read the Gospels, that's your midnight story every night for 5-10 years, and that becomes a habit for you. You get married to a nice little Catholic person, you know, you guys have kids and all that, and all of a sudden one morning you wake up like a salmon fish, your life is meaningless. Do you become lonely? Absolutely. Do you get depressed? Yes. Does the depression become chronic if you don't check it quickly? Yeah. Will it lead to paralysis, physically, emotionally, intellectually? Yeah, you won't feel anything for anyone. You become extremely selfish. And you read the Bible, it's no longer working for you. And then you go on this quest. You want to call it the spiritual quest, you can. You want to call it the philosophical quest, you can. It matters very little what title you want to give it. Now, as Emerson would say, or Thoreau would say, you want to suck the marrow out of life. But before you can suck the marrow out of life, you have to figure out where the marrow is. And that's not an easy path. You don't find very many Socrates. Life doesn't create them very often. Once in a while. And so I suppose your second life, after everything about you is deleted, that becomes your spiritual quest, or intellectual quest. Now you're looking for something that can't be seen, touched, tasted. You become a salmon fish. And that particular depression has value. But we'll talk about that later. Yeah. Isaiah?
How do you suggest like someone gets out of like that slump like that? Like, you don't feel anything towards anything. Like you just not like that state that you were just talking about.
I think when you're young, it's very natural to look at your parents as idiots, to look at your teachers as nerds and jerks, and you want to go out and explore things. You know, you don't want to turn out to be like your parents. You certainly don't want to turn out to be like me, coming to class and rambling on about nonsense for a few hours and monotone and unexciting, right? So you want something different. And that's the right of every kid. Every child has that. There is a guy, and some of you may have seen his paintings. His name is Thomas Cole, an American naturalist painter. He has this 4 set of painting. It's called The Voyage of Life. The second painting is of particular interest because what you have in the second painting is someone like you, young, has this powerful intense zest for life. If there was anyone in the boat protecting him, nourishing him or her, in the first painting, in the second boat, the guy says, or you say, I don't want anyone, I can do this on my own. And what every 20-year-old has is a very fertile imagination. Your marriage is going to be great. You know, like sometimes when I was younger, I would go to coffee shops, I would watch these like older couples. I was like in my 20s, and people in the 40s or 50s, probably married for a long time or been together for a long time, would walk in. They would not look at each other. They would not talk to each other. And as a 20-year-old, I would say, never going to have that. I'm going to like have a companion. They're going to be immensely creative. We're going to talk endlessly about wonderful things. What I didn't realize in my 20s is that it takes a long time for you to become comfortable with the silence of your companion, but it doesn't bother you. You actually accept the fact that, well, she has her own world, you have your own world. The two of you are out drinking coffee and minding your own business. It's okay. Now imagine if you were to do that at the age of 20. What's wrong? Are you not happy? You want to go somewhere do drugs? Should we listen to Snoop Dogg? You know? And so the point I'm trying to make is you're talking about the very sensitive years from the age maybe 15, where hormonally, physically, everything about you is changing, to almost like 20-some, years of age, where you look at society and you say, yuck. Why did my parents create such an awful arena to be in? And so you don't trust anything, you don't like anything, and you want to make your own world. And so there is nothing out there that inspires you. That also depends on your temperament. If you're an intense introvert, you get attached very easily, and you lose that attachment also very easily. And introverts have a tendency of internalizing things, even if they shouldn't, but they do. Okay? They take everything very, very personally. They get hurt very quickly. They're very lonely. Nothing satisfies them. And so for them, it's far more devastating, the years of confusion. For an extrovert, the story is a little different. Extrovert means you can go out there, latch onto something, and it can nourish you for a number of months or weeks or years before you're no longer interested, and then you move on to something else. Okay? But one of the nice things about, I suppose, more traditional cultures, say India or China, is that I don't know if it's by design or it's intuitive, that they argued, look, you're dealing with like teenagers and they're slowly entering the peak of their sexuality. Let's get them married. Let's tame the sexual desire through marriage. Let's tame their confusion by having them have children early in life. Because you don't have time to say, oh, I'm happy. You gotta tend to your family, man. And by the time you're like 30, you're set in life. It used to be that way, not anymore. Okay? So the years of confusion are kind of cloaked by the busyness of life. Since none of that stuff works right now, it just doesn't exist, you have no choice but to stay in this world of confusion and also numbness. But what is working against you is a culture, this particular culture that says you need to have everything together. Have confidence, have a business, go to school, do this, do that. Any kind of failure is an evil upon your life. And the truth is, you're young, you need to make a lot of mistakes. At the same time, you need to have a support system that just in case you fall, someone can pick you up. You don't have that. Yeah.
I say this because I went through like a similar experience, I guess I don't know. And I felt bad, man. I got kicked out of Berkeley and everything, and came back. I had nowhere really to go, nowhere really to stay. I didn't get my own apartment, couldn't really afford it. Now I'm here, and it just feels kind of like a step back, And then it's hard to go towards back into that kind of journey. Just easing into it, trying to, but
Yeah.
It's difficult.
We'll talk about the salmon journey on a different day. And though your journey may have resembled the salmon journey, it's very, very different, but we'll talk about that more. Anyone else before we go home? Yeah.
have any insights on communicating over their ideas?
So a couple of things. As I get older and older and older, my desire to be in the classroom becomes less and less and less. I don't want to talk. I don't want to look at people. I don't even want to hear my own ideas. Usually I just go somewhere, turn off the lights, and just write. I have no need to get to know you or your ideas so I could manipulate you into buying my ideas. Okay. So the first thing that you need to understand is the moment you kind of go out with someone and you desire them, there is a part of you that needs sociability. Okay. Second, you also have to wonder why you're interested in people's ideas in the first place. In my ethics class, which is on Monday and Wednesday, I have a couple of students who say, can you open up the class for discussion? I say no. That stage for me is gone. I don't want to sit back and listen to an 18-year-old talk randomly about things I don't really understand. Don't tell me about love. You don't know what it is. Don't tell me about authenticity. You have zero idea what it is. I have no doubt that you can go on your Facebook page or TikTok page or whatever page that people create these days and talk endlessly about those things. Okay. So you shut things down very, very quickly. And that has to do with the fact that, well, you have some age, you have some experience, you have some observation skills, you've come to certain conclusions. So you're not really interested in what people think. Okay. You ever heard those people who have like thousands or if not millions of dollars? They have a kid, they have a wife or a husband, they have tons of friends, but they say, you know what, I'm just going to leave everything I have for my dog. Well, what the hell is your dog going to do with millions of dollars? Well, it's not so much for the dog. It's really, I hate my family so much that I come to realize I don't really deserve a penny of my money that I was earned with blood and sweat. You need to kind of value where you are in life, what you have in life, to kind of find yourself slightly more detached from the people on the outside. Now, living in society is also a little complicated in the sense that you need people for affirmation, for confirmation, for likability. You need people to wrestle with, to sharpen and refining your own skills, you know. But there needs to come a time where you just don't need them. The only ideas you should be interested in people, if you run into a Socrates or a Plato, if you run into a Jesus or a Malcolm X, it's something that Friedrich Nietzsche had talked about many years ago before he went completely mad, is when I speak about India, brown people, the first person who comes to mind is Mahatma Gandhi. When I think about the African American community, the first person who comes about is Malcolm X. Not Snoop Dogg, Malcolm X. And you realize something really interesting, that there is one German, let's just say, his name is Friedrich Nietzsche, and every other German who comes your way, the first thing you ask is, have you heard of Friedrich Nietzsche? Why? Because he is the best of the Germans. So one of the awful things about, say, someone like Socrates or Jesus Christ is that if you don't think like Socrates, if your network of thought, the way you process experiences, you don't do it in the way that Socrates did, you don't know how to think. You have zero value. If on the other hand, Socrates had never existed, then everybody's ideas are good. Everybody's position is valid, but that's not the case. You play soccer? So there is this guy whose name is Cristiano Ronaldo. He used to play for Real Madrid. Okay. First, he's a great looking guy. Have you ever seen his face? Beautiful. Six pack? Awesome. Seen his thighs? Incredible. I mean, sometimes I'm sad because I'm not gay. I said, man, if I was, I'd probably go to Portugal or Spain, stalk them, find them in a corner somewhere. But all that aside, I didn't watch soccer for many, many years, even though I wanted to be a pro, until one morning my nephew, who was like 5, said, Amir, can we watch Cristiano Ronaldo? I said, who? Ronaldo. I said, sure. The way he runs, the way he does free kicks. Messi is good too, but there is something about Ronaldo. I'm not sure what it is, okay? He was at this particular organization for about 9 years, let's just say 10 years. I didn't watch Real Madrid because of other players. If I turned on the TV to watch soccer and for some strange reason Cristiano Ronaldo was not playing, I would turn off the TV and go away. He was the only reason I would watch soccer. And the moment he left Real Madrid for Juventus, and now he's in the Arab world, I'm no longer interested in soccer. And that's one of the things that we do as human beings. We compare ourselves to the best that's out there. They had done this experiment with elephants some years ago that 4 or 5 or 6 of them were standing and drinking water from like 6 different buckets of water. One of the elephants was drinking water, but they had put some color in the water, pink. And all these elephants all of a sudden stopped drinking water. They were all looking at the elephant with this strange looking water. And they began to worship this elephant. That's what we do as human beings. There are people out there who are creative, profoundly creative, and they inspire you. And you compare yourself to them, and you want to be like them. Envy is good. Lust is good if you can use those components in the right way. So have no interest in other people's ideas unless you can bait them, coerce them, manipulate them, deceive them, so that they can begin to like you. And once they like you, now you can sell them your own perspectives. I'm only interested in one thing, for you to come to my office so I can force you to go back to school and do humanities and philosophy. Because I have the power to open a couple of doors for you. You can start teaching. I don't care about your culture. I don't care about where you've been, what you've done. None of those things are important for me. Can I sell myself to you? And that usually takes time. Because how it happens is first you have to be inspired. But inspiration is a flame that will go out very, very quickly. And for the inspiration to survive, I need to invite you back to the office, day in and day out. And then invite you to my house. And you're no longer 20, you're like 40. Which means that, for the most part, faith and love and trust, they vanished from you. So they have to be rebuilt. So I have to spend a lot of time just creating those foundations. And then once you like me, you will respect me. And then you will fear me. And then I'll say, well, how about you doing philosophy? Okay. Because you don't really want to disappoint me at that stage. Yeah, gossip is no good. Stay away from it. Anyone else who hasn't yet asked anything before we... Rosalind? Yeah. Oh, it's part of life. Let me kind of unpack this a little bit. Are you a Christian? Damn. You think you can be one? It's no good. Regret. So there is this idea that human beings are born in sin. Okay. Now the word sin means missing the mark. How do you miss the mark? Well, there are many ways that can happen. Let's say you pack up and you drive to Los Angeles. That's where your boyfriend is. And you leave at 4 and you want to get there by 10. Okay. That's your mark. Now, let's say you were packing the entire night. There are two forces at play. One force has to do with you, and one force has to do with the world outside. A couple days ago on 580, going towards Hayward, there was a shooting on the highway. People were stuck for like 10 hours. If there was a wedding to go to, if you were the bride or the groom, well, they left you. If you had a date, she probably left you as well. If you had an interview for a job, well, that's gone. All the marks have been missed. Okay? Now, to get to Los Angeles, that's your mark. What do? Well, you need to pack. You need some undergarments, you need shirts, you need pants, you need shoes, you need money, you need this, you need that. Okay? Then you need a car. Change the oil, make sure the tires are good, brakes are good, so you don't get stuck. Okay? Now, just in case you had a rough night sleeping, there's a good chance in the middle of the road, you're going to like park and just go to sleep. About 10, 15, 20 minutes. So instead of getting there at 10, you'll get there about 12. Now, let's just say there are a few accidents on the road. You're not going to get there at 10. Let's say your phone no longer connects to the internet. And so there is no GPS. So you have no idea where you're going. There's no direction, no map. This is not because you're a Christian. You need resources. And you need all the resources to be there for something to work for you and work right for you. Let's say your mark is you want to get an A in this class. Well, you're lazy. You don't really understand the material. It takes time to sit your ass down and really think and reflect about things. Okay? You want to love. That's your mark. Well, your mom wasn't there. Your dad wasn't there. Everything about you is broken. You've been in and out of relationships for the past 20 years. What the hell are you talking about? You have no choice but to continue to miss the mark. So it's very natural for us to miss the mark. Now, if you've ever seen an elephant give birth, 2 seconds later, the baby elephant starts walking. Birds, when they have their chicks, a couple days later, they push them out. The mother either die or fly. Human beings, on the other hand, it takes us a long time to figure things out. From a variety of different reasons. First, life is complicated. We are a mystery to ourselves. Other people are a mystery to us. Society is complicated. We have desires and hopes and imaginations. We have no idea where they came from. You like someone. Why the hell do you like them? That's a mystery. So you make all these plans, and the most devastating thing is time will pass, and then time will reveal something to you. You made a mistake. Now, you're not going to regret something you don't care for. If you have $100 in this pocket and $1 in this pocket, should you lose the one, you're not going to regret. You're not going to be too sad. If on the other hand, you lose the 100 and you had plans with the 100, you're going to be sad. I should have been more reflective, more observant, more this, more that. So regret is always about things that you care, you made plans, and it didn't work out. And the truth is, nothing is going to work out for us. Nothing is. We're always going to fall short because first, you change as a human being. In a few years, you're going to change into falling in love with someone. Relationships are enormously complicated. Time will pass, whether it's a week or a month or a couple of years, you will realize you don't love them. In fact, you hate them. And then you regret being married. Then you divorce. Then you, after a while, you realize, oh, shoot, there wasn't really anything wrong with the guy. What is wrong with me? Why did I leave him? Now you have another regret. Continues. And the most devastating regret of them all is when you get a little older, more wrinkly, more ugly, more smelly. And what you realize is what you're missing most is time. You don't have time. You don't have much energy. And then you think back and you realize all the time and energy you wasted on people. And for what? You like their ideas. Yuck. So good luck. Tired. So, anyone else before we... Are we good? So you know all these, when you go to Barnes & Nobles, the self-help section? The self-help section in bookstores.
Yeah.
You know, live a life of no regret. Live suffering-free. Only in America will you find such books. You need to understand your situation in life. You are fucked. And there is no escape from it. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, Andy.
How do you deal with addiction?
Well, it depends what kind of addiction you're talking about. There are good addictions, there are bad addictions. Let's say that you and I are in a relationship. Can you imagine that? Well, what's wrong with your imagination? Can't you imagine that? Good job. What exactly are you imagining? Okay. So, yeah. So, you and I are in a relationship, and as we said this earlier, relationships are complicated. You come with a history that's unknown to me. I come with a history unknown to me, unknown to you. The histories begin to mesh, only to realize that they don't really mesh well. Then the wrestling match begins. You win a couple days, and I win more than a couple. And then friction begins to appear. Now, let's say one morning you and I wake up and we have this argument that turns into a screaming match. I don't have the resources, and remember we started our conversation profoundly civilized. We actually imagined that emotions can be held by language. We fail to realize that language, the only thing it does is that it creates misunderstandings and confusion and fragmentation. So I say something to you, you misunderstand it. You say something to me, I misunderstand it. And then I scream at you, you scream back, then I scream at you, and then you cry. And I go to the nearest bar. I've never been to a bar, but I go. And I've never drank, but I do this time. Oh man, it feels so good to be unburdened. And like a good monkey, I realized something really interesting. When I drink 2, 3, 4, 5 beers, I no longer feel the pressure of the relationship. I can joke, I can laugh, I can do this, I can do that. It's something that Sigmund Freud talked about, but we'll talk about that later. And then I go somewhere, I sit, the effect of alcohol wears off, I come home and I apologize. But there is something that we say in Persian, that in relationships there is this invisible line. Once you cross it, something about the relationship is seriously now cracked. You know, I can, in fun and in good times, I can look at you and say, "Oh, Andy, shut up." But the truth is, life is not always funny. And once I become in the habit of telling you shut up, in seriousness, I will also tell you to shut up. But the shut up that I will say in serious moments, you're going to take them very, very differently. And they're going to mean differently. And they're going to impact you differently. Okay? Now, let's just say that as our disagreements begin to increase, and that's what usually happens when you become comfortable with someone, you know, I find myself more and more in the bar and more drinking. Okay. It's not because I enjoy the taste of alcohol, it's because that's the only way I can unburden myself. But then something strange happens, that I have frequented this bar and I have consumed alcohol on such regular or frequency that even when we have a good time and you say, let's go somewhere, I say, okay, let's go to the bar. Bar, yeah. And at a certain point you realize that my physical body is addicted to a certain location, a bar. My taste buds demand, psychologically I demand. There are a whole host of things about me that now desires to be at that particular place. And so the point of this is that addiction usually is a gradual thing. And you usually do it because it unburdens you in some shape or form. The other aspect of addiction could be that you're trying to figure your place in this confusing world. So you begin to read Plato's dialogues. And all of a sudden you realize you're becoming really interested in just literature. You know, and your friends call you to a party, you say, no, I'm reading. Your mom calls you for dinner, no, I'm reading. And you go to the bathroom, you're reading. Everywhere you go, you're reading. You come to this class, you're supposed to pay attention, but you're reading. Because the book is far more interesting than the things I say. Now that's a good addiction to have. Now, the problem with all kinds of addiction is that it's about a relationship. That all of a sudden one relationship becomes dominant and all the other relationships are subservient. Okay? And you become very protective of the relationship. If you consume alcohol and you're addicted to alcohol or drugs, I mean, it's like, I have a lot of like 18, 19, 20-year-old students who say, yeah, you know, I do like weed every day for like a bucket. I do a bucket of weed every day. And they try to justify it by saying it's about justice, it's a natural drug, it's a this, it's a that, you know, all the hippie stuff. But they never say, well, you know, it's something I've been doing for about the past 10 years. It's very difficult for me to quit. Even though they may read somewhere, you know, about the negative impacts on your neurons, but we have a tendency of justifying all evils of life, you know. So, anyways, good luck. Anyone else? Terry. The what? For the assignment, you mean? Okay. So when it comes to the questions, you will use the same set of items to base your questions on. So let's just say for week 1, you listened to 10 minutes of the audio and it captured your interest, something. Just write that down in a question form and tell me why it's important. Well, yeah, you can use them for other questions if you wanted to. Now you have an essay due September something. That has to do with all the 2 audios and the 1 video. And you follow the steps. Did we talk about this at all? No. So, okay. Let's say, and it's an example that's on the assignments. Imagine it this way. Let's say that on the audio, we're talking about smoking. Okay. And then you write about your own experience as a smoker? Why you got interested, how you became addicted. That requires sitting down, examining, observing, reflecting, and then putting all those things in language, in essay format. Then you also remember there have been moments where you want to quit. It's just you want to quit. Well, you talk about the emotions, you talk about the regrets, you talk about these moments of awakening where you say, I want to quit. And then you talk about the habits. In as much as there is this new Terry that says, don't smoke anymore, there is a Terry that for the past 15 years has been smoking. So there's this new Terry, 2 days old Terry, 20 years old. Who's going to win? Well, this is going to lose. It's new. It's a seed that you're going to walk on. Destroy it. Now, if you wanted to quit smoking, I need to know the steps. What do you need to do? Well, you have to understand addiction well. You have to understand habits well. You also need to look at your phone, cell phone, and all the contacts that you have on there, and you realize that 90% of your friends are smokers. If you want to quit, well, you have to sanitize your space, which means what? Well, next time you go on your phone, you can't see those names anymore. Delete them. Well, you're not just deleting names and numbers, you're deleting friendships. Well, that's tough. You're deleting history, attachment, dependency. And then you gotta talk about the ups and downs, that there are days where you're sober, there are days this addiction haunts you, and you fall, and you go back. Kind of like Robin Williams, the yo-yo syndrome. That's the first part. And you have to do this for every single item, on the module. The next part is going to be a bit more difficult because all of us in this class, whether you like it or not, we are social animals. I'm not very much into politics. Temperamentally, I can't get myself too involved. Culturally, I was in it for a while. It's no longer interesting for me. Okay. But then there are moments where I say, okay, I understand the conflict between Israel and Palestine. I also understand that they found 6 dead hostages. I also understand that they killed also about 50,000 people. So there is this inequality, this imbalance. Value of people, value of life, all that stuff. Well, you can have personal observations and personal realizations and awakenings. How do you make it happen for a group? If the 4 of us in this classroom are in your contact, and all of us are smokers, you want to keep the friendship, but you want us to quit smoking, how do you make that happen for the 4 of us here? Because it's no longer about you, it's about community now, transformation. And don't give me bullets and don't give me bumper stickers. I need to see that you understand things, you're able to express things well, and you know the steps towards recovery of any kind. Is it a difficult assignment? Yeah. Will you guys do a good job? No. But as long as you do, you'll pass the class and you should be happy. Are we? Anyone? Yeah.
I had a similar experience with my friends, with stop smoking stuff. Pretty much what I did was just I collectively came to them. Well, I came to them collectively, and then just talked to them about why I wanted to start, how I wanted to start, that we should all do it, that it would benefit everybody. And I guess if they had enough appreciation for what I wanted to do, why I wanted to start, we all kind of just stopped as a group.
Yeah. By the time you get to be 50, 60, you have no friends left, so it's okay. Any one else before we... What time is it? 55, so we have 20 minutes. Priya? Sorry? It could be. A little bit.
What else are you reading?
Your writings? How often you sleep in class? How engaged you are? The more you fall asleep, the better your grade. Anyone else? Terry?
What's your opinion on
I don't really. Yeah, yeah. I've never thought about those things. No, not really, but yeah. It works for some people. It doesn't work for others. They're a good map to have. You know, lots of studies have been done about depressed people and how they deal with depression, well, especially when they suffer a huge loss in their life. Those who have no religion and have claimed to be autonomous, independent, and, you know, very enlightened, they have a tendency of suffering from chronic depression because they have no place to go. Those, on the other hand, who do believe in God, they seem to be a bit more happier. They believe for themselves that there is a support system that they have. You know, so is it? I think it's good to have. Look, it's. I have a lot of tools. Do I use them all the time? No. Do things go wrong where I need to go to the garage and get my toolbox and fix things? Yeah, it's good to have them. Just, you know, have some stories inside you about religion. You have no idea when they will come handy. They may never. But should, you know, you find yourself in a position like Joe, where life has completely demolished you, and you just need something to believe in, well, your mom taught you a few things about Yahweh. It's good. You know, you don't want to do to God what Christians have done to, say, gay people for all these years in the Western world. You know, you don't want to do to God what whites have done to blacks. It's just something, it's a living organism, allowed to roam around freely. One day you will use it. It's okay. The word religion, it means to go back, to return. And it can be used in all sorts of different things. Some people, salvation is not so much about going to religion or becoming a Catholic. Some people are just making peace with their Father. That's going back. And once you go back and once you accept, once you receive, once you develop some faith and trust, you're healed. It's finished. You've been saved. You don't need anything else. Yeah. Any one else before we... Yeah.
is it important to talk to people?
Well, if there are ears that can listen, women are really good about this. Men, not so much. It takes them a while because men are we just mature very, very slowly. When you're 18, and you know, the culture and all the movies out there, they inspire you to go out there and find yourself a companion. Anyone who looks at you, you will feel relevant. Your value goes up. It's like every time your hand goes up, I kind of just look the other way. And after a while, you're going to internalize the experience and you're going to say, you know, he's an idiot. Amir is. And you feel devalued. You feel disrespected. Okay? And every time your hand goes up, I call on you and I pay attention to your question. Well, there are 40 people in this room. You're the only one I'm looking at, paying attention to. Your value goes up. And so when you're young, because you don't really have much value, I mean, you're not yet autonomous or creative in that way, you want to see your own reflection in other people. And anyone who will give you attention, you say yes. You know. and you take everything that they will give you. And then, of course, time passes, you realize that he or she's an idiot, or maybe you're an idiot, and you will continue doing this for a while until something about you burns out. You get exhausted. I'm tired of going out with all these people. Maybe I'm not ready. You kind of check yourself a little. And let's say after having examined your own position and you have found yourself to be somewhat healthy, okay, but there are a couple of reasons to why you find dysfunctional people to walk into your life. And you kind of go through rehab. I'm not talking about therapy or anything. You just kind of sit, you figure things out. And that usually takes about 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And then you say, okay, I don't want to get old alone, and I want to get sick alone, and I want to die alone. I want to find myself a companion. And now you go on these dating apps, I guess. Or you go to Laney College and sit in classes. Not so much to learn, but to see if you can find yourself a companion. And you sit there, and you sit there, and you pay attention to the way someone sits, someone talks, someone walks, the way someone dresses. You know, they may show a lot of skin and you may love it. But then you have to ask, well, I may love that person while showing a lot of skin. But if that is the way they're going to dress all the time, will I be able to tolerate it when I'm in a relationship with her or him? How's jealousy going to work? How's possessiveness going to work? How's my mom going to feel? Okay. And then when you go out on dates after having done all this stuff, you pick and choose the questions and you pick and choose the people very, very carefully. So talking to people is very much the same. When I was a young instructor, my office door was always open. Come in, I'll make you coffee. I'll give you food if I have some in the office. I'll sit and listen to your sad story, sure. I'm young, I'm stupid, I have lots of energy, I'm going to give it away freely. Now, no. If you have questions about your grade, ask in class. If you have questions about assignments, ask in class. If you have questions about philosophy, ask in class. But, you know, as long as you're young, just waste energy. It's okay. You learn from it. Not all wastes are bad. One of the best examples of the value of waste, of sin, of regret, is the story you'll find in the Gospel of Luke, I think. The prodigal son that you guys have listened to or watched. The kid does nothing but waste. Everything about his life is a waste. But then he understands. Then he repents. Then he values his father. Then he values his money. Then he loves his father. Look at the older son. Nothing. All he has is jealousy and resentment and envy. So it's good to waste, but the value of waste is only when you catch yourself having wasted. Because if you just continue to waste and you don't learn from it, you just turn out to be stupid. You know, by the time you realize something, it may be too late. I mean, one of the nice things about the prodigal son story is he catches himself before his father is dead. Had his father been dead, probably would have never forgiven himself. You know, so it's good to catch yourself in time to be able to go back and correct some of the mistakes. There was a movie that came out in the 1980s. I know many of you were born yesterday, but it's called Flatliners. It's about three or four or 5 or 10 young medical doctors or interns, and they wanted to experience what happens when you die. You know, and what they all experienced was that they go back in time and they encounter the person they hurt most. And so when they were brought back to life, this particular awareness now burdened them. So they went looking for these people, and then they apologized. So, anyone else? Matt.
How far should our capacity for forgiveness go? At what point does the wrong that's done to you is too far for sympathy to get back?
Well, first, it depends on who has crossed certain lines with you. Okay. The second has to do with how attached or dependent you were on them. You know, how much you care, how much you were invested. Forgiveness really is the very last stage of, I suppose, your maturity in regards within the context of that relationship. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm your dad, okay? And I've been very abusive to you from day one. Now, because you're a kid, because your frontal lobe is not yet fully developed, you experience, you forget quickly. For those of us in this class who have children, we know exactly how that feels, you know. Your child throws a temper tantrum, you smack him, he sits somewhere, begins to cry for an hour or two, and then you go sit next to him and say, let's go for ice cream. He's on your lap, he's happy. As if like an hour ago never happened, okay? Now, as I become more and more abusive, and as you kind of get older, you begin to absorb more things. And one of the things about me being your father, and you being a child, and needing me, because that's what the formative years demand, you have both the father and the mother around you. Little by little, there is this crack in the concrete of the formative years. There is something about you that says to you, don't run to him anymore. Don't say hello to him anymore. When he walks in the door, just look the other way. Okay? And let's say that you leave the house at the age of 15 and you happen to be profoundly competent. And that's one of the nice things about, not all the time, nice things about kids growing up in a very rough environment, realizing that the only person they can depend on is themselves, and they have the maturity and the intuitive maturity as well to go out there and kind of respect who and what they are. They put themselves to school, they get themselves a job, buy themselves a car, find themselves a nice little place, okay? And you get married and whatever. At a certain point, you're in the park with your kids, you're having a great time, you see an old man holding his son's hand or something, or the son holding, you know, his father's hand. And you say, why couldn't my father do this for me, okay? You thought you were over all of this. You're now 50 or 60 or 70, right? But no one gets over these scars, you know? It's like, that's the thing about trauma. Trauma lives inside you. You know, you can try to not look at it, forget it for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but it's everywhere. It's kind of like chronic depression. You can avoid it for a day or two, maybe an hour or two, but it will come back, okay? Now, you've had these moments throughout the years where you pick up the phone and you're about to dial my number. And those are inspired moments of forgiveness. They mean nothing. Because those inspired moments have zero understanding in them. They are inspired nevertheless. It's kind of like act of compassion. You know the bumper stickers you see on the highway on the cars? Exercise like an act of compassion or kindness. You know, some stupid shit like that. And so, my wife, your mom, with whom you have a great relationship, and she's now ex, okay? She calls your wife saying, tell Matt that his father is sick in the hospital. He's got like 2-3 weeks left. You get in the car, you go to Kaiser. You want to come up, but now you're sitting in the car. You're contemplating, should I go up? Should I not go up? What should I do? There are lots of things for you to overcome to be able to open the door and get yourself to floor 8. Eventually you do. You're going to have inspired moments. Maybe you'll cry, maybe not. Maybe you'll scream and shout and A, B, C, D. Before you have a chance to express your disgust for me, I'm going to say, Matt, sit down. Now I'm going to tell you my life story. That when I was growing up, my father was drunk. Every single day he belted me, punched me, kicked me. I stayed there for my mom and for my sisters. Everything I touched in my life, I destroyed because I didn't know what to do with the abuse. I suffered. And I didn't know what else to do with you except to copy what my dad did to me. I'm sorry. Now, this does a couple of things for you. Not only do you need to carry your own emotions now, you need to carry the stories that I just shared with you. Now you realize I never really had a chance. You had a chance. You made a life for yourself. I wasn't able to. What are you going to do now? Now you carry two crosses. The cross of you being disgusted by me for the past 40 years, and the fact that I am your father, I really tried, but I couldn't. And then you're going to go home, you're going to wrestle, you're going to bang your head to the wall, you're going to do all sorts of crazy things. Scream, shout at your wife, your kids, something you've never done before. And then I'm dead. 2, 3, 4, 5 years pass by. Then you ask your mom, where is he buried? Then you go to Piedmont. You find the gravestone. You sit there. I understand. I forgive you. It's finished. So remember, we're all inspired to reflect, to forgive, to be compassionate. But inspiration is like throwing some lighter fluid on charcoal and then putting a match to it. It'll go up in flames, but it'll die after a couple seconds. That's inspiration. It's a glimpse into your own capacity, that you have the capacity to do this. Understanding is something very, very different. It's kind of like what you have to do for the assignments. You have to look at the steps, if you know them. Anyone else? What time is it? Is it time to go? Is it 45 or 15?
Well, like that.
We have time for a quickie. And this is a quickie culture, so let's have one. Okay, half. Yeah, Katya.
What about love versus love?
I don't like love. And I don't like in love. If by love you mean many years have passed, you've come to understand your companion, their history, their boundaries, who they are, what they are, that's a good love. You may not be in love, but you have a good amount of love for them. There's a good amount of respect for them, knowledge about them, understanding of them. Being in love, just lonely, pathetic, sad, depressed, someone looks at you, you come to life, you're in love. It's not going to last. I guess what I'm trying to say is don't be stupid.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
So I was sick last Thursday, so I know a lot of this class is based on attendance and participation. So if you have issues like that, with sickness or something, like how many of those?
Half your grade is gone.
Oh.
So right now you're standing about middle of C and D. Some money, some coffee may help. I'm just kidding. So, have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the couple days. I'll see you on Thursday. Take care.